The snow fell like shattered glass on the Detroit streets as Zarya stood barefoot on the concrete, her hands trembling, not from the cold, but from what she'd just signed away. Behind the locked door of the home she'd paid for in secret, her husband of 5 years kissed another woman, celebrating the end of their marriage like it was New Year's Eve. He had no idea he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. What he was about to lose would make his billion-dollar empire look like pocket change. Before we reveal how this quiet, pregnant woman destroyed a billionaire without saying a single word, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You're not going to believe what happens next. Seriously, Detroit, Atlanta, Houston, wherever you are, let me know in the comments. 15 minutes earlier, Darnell Crawford, self-made billionaire, owner of Crawford Urban Properties, and the man every black business magazine wanted to interview, sat across from his wife at their kitchen table with divorce papers spread between them like a death sentence. "Just sign it, Zarya," he said, his voice cold as the winter night outside. "Stop making this harder than it needs to be." Zarya looked down at her belly, 3 months pregnant with his child, and felt her heart shatter into pieces too small to ever be put back together. "Darnell, please, we can work through this. The baby, that baby ain't stopping nothing." He cut her off, his eyes dead. "I'm done playing house with you. Janae's the woman I want. She understands my lifestyle, my ambitions. You." He looked at her simple jeans and sweater with disgust. "You were always too small for my world. Too small." The words cut deeper than he'd ever known. If only he knew that the small woman sitting across from him was Zarya Holloway Baptiste, heir to the Baptiste Property Collective, the most powerful black real estate empire in the Midwest. Her grandmother had started buying properties during the white flight from Detroit, when nobody else believed in the city. Now, the Baptiste family owned the soul of Detroit. Apartment buildings, commercial real estate, shopping centers, warehouses, and yes, even the very office building where Darnell ran his empire. Zarya had hidden her wealth when they met 5 years ago. She'd wanted real love, not someone chasing her money. She'd found Darnell when he was just starting, believed in him, supported him, even secretly helped finance some of his early deals through shell companies. She'd loved him with everything she had. And now he was throwing her away like garbage. Her hands shook as she signed the papers. Each stroke of the pen felt like writing her own obituary. "Good," Darnell said, snatching the papers before the ink could dry. "Now get out. Janae's waiting." "It's 15 degrees outside, Darnell. Can I at least get my coat? You got 10 minutes before I call my boys to put you out." His phone was already in his hand. Clocks ticking. Zarya stood slowly, her hand instinctively protecting her belly. She walked to the door of the house they'd renovated together, where they'd laughed and made love and planned a future that was now ashes. As she stepped into the brutal Detroit winter wearing nothing but a sweater and jeans, she heard Janae's high-pitched laughter echo from inside. Through the window, she watched Darnell pull his mistress into a kiss. That's when Zarya made the call that would change everything. Her cousin Rashad answered on the first ring. Zarya's voice was steady, cold, final. "It's time. Pull everything." 2 weeks later, Thanksgiving Day arrived with the smell of fried fish and the sound of Marvin Gaye floating through Camille Crawford's backyard in Palmer Woods. 75 people filled the space. Family, friends, neighbors, all gathered for the annual fish fry that had become a neighborhood tradition. Darnell arrived like a king, Janae on his arm, dressed in a designer outfit that cost more than most people's rent. He worked the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations on his new beginning. His phone kept buzzing with business deals, investor calls, and partnership opportunities. Life was good. Life was perfect. Then Zarya walked through the gate. The music seemed to lower. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. All eyes turned to the quiet woman in the simple maternity dress, her belly now showing at 5 months. Her face calm despite the storm of whispers that erupted around her. Y'all, what happens next is insane. If you're loving this story, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed because the revenge that's coming? Chef's kiss. Comment below if you think she should have stayed away or if she had every right to show up. Uncle Vernon, Camille's husband, had invited her. He'd always liked Zarya, didn't understand why his brother-in-law had thrown away a good woman. He smiled at her warmly, but before he could speak, Camille cut through the crowd like a knife. "Oh hell no," Camille announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. She'd been drinking since noon, and Janae had been in her ear all day, talking about that bitter baby mama, who was probably broke and desperate. Camille stumbled up to Zarya, her cup of red Kool-Aid sloshing in her hand. "Girl, what are you doing here? You really came to beg my brother for money?" The crowd formed a circle. Phones came out. This was about to be Facebook Live content for days. "I was invited," Zarya said quietly. "I didn't come to cause trouble, Camille." "Trouble? Trouble?" Camille's voice climbed higher. "You were always in trouble. A leech, holding my brother back from his destiny. And that baby?" She pointed at Zarya's stomach with her free hand. "That baby probably ain't even his." The crowd gasped. Some people moved closer. Others looked away, embarrassed. Darnell stood 20 feet away, arms crossed, watching. He said nothing, did nothing, just watched his sister humiliate the mother of his child. And then Camille did it. She threw the entire cup of red Kool-Aid directly in Zarya's face. The sticky, cold liquid soaked her hair, her dress, ran down her face in crimson streams. The crowd erupted in gasps and shouts. Someone screamed. Kids started crying. Janae actually laughed, and pulled out her phone to record. Zarya stood there, Kool-Aid dripping from her chin, her dress ruined, her dignity shattered in front of 75 witnesses. She didn't wipe her face. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She reached into her purse, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out her phone. The crowd went silent, watching. She made one call. It rang twice. "Rashad," she said, her voice steady as steel. "Activate it. Everything we talked about. Right now." She ended the call, looked directly at Darnell for 3 seconds, just 3 seconds that felt like an eternity, then turned and walked out of that backyard with her head high, leaving Kool-Aid footprints on the grass. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They had no idea they just witnessed the beginning of the end. Cliffhanger. By Monday morning, Darnell Crawford's entire world would be gone. Monday, 8:47 a.m. Darnell pulled up to his office building on Woodward Avenue in his leased Mercedes, coffee in hand, ready to close a $50 million development deal that would cement his status as Detroit's premier real estate developer. The locks were changed. What the hell? He pulled on the glass doors. Locked. He knocked. A security guard he'd never seen before appeared. "Building's closed, sir. New ownership. All previous tenants have been notified of lease termination." "Lease termination? Man, I work here. I've got a 15-year lease." The guard shrugged. "Take it up with Baptiste Property Collective. They own it now." Baptiste. That name. Why did that sound familiar? Oh, it's about to get so much worse for him. If you're Team Zarya, drop a flame emoji in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed because you do not want to miss how this ends. By Tuesday afternoon, Darnell's Mercedes was repossessed from the Cascade Athletic Club parking lot. The dealership explained that the loan had been called in by Baptiste Financial Group. When he tried to go inside the club to make calls, they informed him that his membership had been revoked due to new ownership policies. Wednesday brought the devastating blow. His biggest client, Meridian Development Group, called to cancel their $50 million contract. "Darnell, man, I'm sorry," his contact said, voice strained. "Our landlord made it crystal clear. We do business with you, we lose our building. We can't afford that risk." "Who's your landlord?" Darnell demanded, though he already knew. Baptiste Property Collective. Thursday, his investors pulled out of 3 major projects. Their warehouses, meeting spaces, and even their lawyers' offices are all Baptiste-controlled properties. The message was clear. Touch Darnell Crawford, lose everything. Friday morning, an eviction notice appeared on his luxury loft door. 30 days to vacate. New ownership. That's when Darnell started really digging. He sat in a Starbucks, one of the few places he could still afford, with his laptop tracing property records, business licenses, corporate structures. What he discovered made his blood run cold. Baptiste Property Collective owned or controlled 73% of the commercial real estate on which he'd built his empire. His office building, his investors' warehouses, the lots for his future developments, the strip mall where his barbershop was, even the building where his lawyer worked. But it was the name on the trust documents that made him stop breathing. Zarya Holloway Baptiste, principal trustee. His wife, his quiet, simple, too small for his world wife, was a trillionaire. The woman he'd locked out in the snow owned the entire city he'd been pretending to conquer. His phone rang. It was Janae. Darnell. Baby. My credit card got declined at Neiman Marcus. Can you? We're broke, he said, his voice hollow. What? Everything's gone. The business, the cars, the loft. It's all gone. Silence. Then, wait. You're serious? Dead serious. The line went dead. Within an hour, Janae had blocked him on everything and posted a cryptic Instagram story. When God closes a door, he opens a window. On to better things. Nail polish sparkles. By week 6, Darnell had lost everything. His business dissolved. His bank accounts were frozen due to unpaid debts. His credit was destroyed. Camille wouldn't take him in. Uncle Vernon had threatened divorce if she did, furious that her actions had triggered this catastrophe. He ended up in a homeless shelter on Grand River Avenue, sleeping on a cot, eating from a soup kitchen, and wearing donated clothes. And then, on a bitter February morning, the black SUV pulled up to the curb where he stood holding a sign that read, "Anything helps. God bless." The back window rolled down, and Darnell's heart stopped. It was her. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel and don't forget to like and share with your friends and family. Now let's get back. The February wind cut through Darnell's thin, donated jacket like broken promises. He stood on Grand River Avenue, cardboard sign trembling in his frozen hands, watching the black SUV idle at the curb. That polished vehicle represented everything he'd lost, everything he'd thrown away with his own arrogance. The back window descended slowly, deliberately. Zarya sat in the warmth, wrapped in a beautiful charcoal wool coat. Her belly was round and full now, 8 months pregnant. Her skin glowed. Her eyes were clear. She looked peaceful, whole, like a woman who'd finally stopped carrying weight that was never hers to bear. Their eyes met. Darnell's mouth opened. 1,000 apologies tried to claw their way out of his throat. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please. I didn't know. Please, Zarya. Please." But no sound came. She looked at him, really looked at him, and in that moment, Darnell saw something that shattered him more completely than losing his empire ever could. He didn't see hatred in her eyes. He didn't see satisfaction or revenge or even anger. He saw nothing. She'd erased him, not from her life that had happened weeks ago. She'd erased him from her emotional landscape entirely. He was a stranger now, less than a stranger. He was a lesson learned, a chapter closed, a door locked forever. "You good, cuz?" Rashad asked from the driver's seat, his protective gaze flickering between Zarya and the broken man on the sidewalk. Zarya nodded once, her hand resting gently on her belly. She didn't say goodbye, didn't acknowledge him, didn't give him the closure he so desperately craved. The window rolled up. The SUV pulled away, merging seamlessly into traffic. Darnell collapsed to his knees on the frozen concrete, his cardboard sign falling into a puddle of dirty slush. His chest heaved with sobs he'd been holding back for weeks. People walked past, some dropping coins in his cup, most looking away with uncomfortable pity. He'd locked her out in the snow, wearing nothing but a sweater. She'd driven past him in a warm car and given him exactly what he'd given her that night. Nothing. The months that followed were a study in consequences. Camille's marriage barely survived. Uncle Vernon made her attend family therapy and cut off all contact with Janae, who'd been exposed on social media as a serial scammer running the same game on multiple wealthy men across 3 states. Janae disappeared to Miami, already latched onto her next victim. Darnell bounced between shelters and occasional couch surfing with distant cousins who made it clear he wasn't welcome long-term. Job applications went nowhere. Detroit's black business community had long memories, and the story of the billionaire who threw out his pregnant wife in the snow had become urban legend. In April, Zarya gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Serenity. The Baptiste Property Collective announced a new initiative, Serenity's Haven, an affordable housing program for working families and single mothers struggling to get back on their feet. The announcement made local and national news, and Forbes ran a feature on the mysterious Baptiste family and their quiet empire. Darnell read the article on a library computer, staring at a photo of Zarya holding baby Serenity, surrounded by her grandmother and aunts at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. She looked radiant, successful, free. He'd spent 5 years married to her and never truly seen her. Now she was everywhere and he was invisible. But the universe wasn't quite done with Darnell Crawford yet. 1 year later, Darnell wiped sweat from his forehead, emptying another trash bin at the Brightmoor Community Center. It was honest work, janitorial, maintenance, and helping set up for youth programs. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but it was steady. He was sober now, in therapy twice a week, learning what humility actually meant. He'd found a small studio apartment in a building he didn't recognize, clean, safe, and affordable. The rent was subsidized somehow, part of a program for people rebuilding their lives. He didn't ask questions. He was just grateful to have walls and a door that locked from the inside. One evening, while signing his monthly rent check, he noticed the building manager's paperwork on the counter. The ownership documents were partially visible. Property owner, Serenity's Haven Housing Initiative, managed by Baptiste Property Collective. His hand froze mid-signature. Zarya owned this building. She'd been his landlord for 6 months, and he'd never known. She could have left him on the streets permanently, could have ensured he'd never find stable housing anywhere in Detroit. With her empire, she could have made him permanently invisible, permanently homeless, exactly as the streets had whispered she would. But she didn't. The affordable rent he'd been paying, rent that allowed him to save money, eat properly, and afford therapy, was subsidized by a program she'd created. A program named after the daughter he'd never met. The daughter he'd dismissed as not his problem. Darnell sat down heavily on the apartment steps, the weight of grace crushing him more completely than revenge ever could. She'd given him mercy when he'd given her cruelty. She'd sheltered him when he'd locked her out in the cold. She'd given him a second chance when he'd destroyed hers. And she'd done it all without ever speaking to him again, without demanding gratitude, without requiring his acknowledgement or apology or brokenness. She'd simply let him live. That night, he wrote a letter he'd never send. An apology that would never reach her because he understood now that she didn't need it. His remorse wasn't for her. It was for him to carry, to learn from, to grow beyond. 6 months later, Darnell had been promoted to program coordinator at the community center. He worked with young men from the neighborhood, teaching them about business, accountability, and the difference between success and character. One Saturday, while setting up for a youth basketball tournament, he saw her across the parking lot. Zarya was dropping off donations, boxes of new athletic equipment for the kids. Little Serenity, almost 2 years old now, held her hand, babbling happily. Their eyes met across the distance. Darnell raised his hand in a small wave, not a greeting, just acknowledgement, recognition, respect. Zarya paused, then nodded once. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement that they both existed, that they'd both survived, that life had continued. Then she loaded Serenity into her car seat and drove away. Darnell returned to setting up basketball hoops, something lighter in his chest than had been there in 2 years. Real power isn't about control, it's about character. Respect costs nothing, but its absence costs everything. Never mistake someone's kindness for weakness, their humility for poverty, or their silence for defeat. The people you underestimate today might be the only ones standing between you and the street tomorrow. If this story taught you something, hit that subscribe button right now and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment with the biggest lesson you learned. I read every single one. Remember, treat people right, because karma doesn't forget addresses. I'll see you in the next one.